squeezed into the rush hour subway. The corn I was holding poked a handsome guy's butt. He turned around and called me a perverted man. Then the train jerked, and our lips accidentally collided. Yes, we kissed. Later in class, I found out he was my student. I apologized and asked if his butt was okay. He threw me onto the bed. Professor, don't worry about me. I think you should worry more about your own butt. Who would have thought I'd lose my first kiss on the subway and get slapped in the face for it? I didn't have time for breakfast that morning, so I brought a hot corn cob with me onto the packed subway. The car was crammed with students and office workers, all pressed shoulder to shoulder. Standing in front of me was a tall, trendy young man, at least 6 feet inches, half a head taller than me. During rush hour, it's normal for people to be squashed front to back. So naturally, my chest was flush against his back. He was wearing a light cologne, smelled quite nice. I was even thinking of asking him for the link. Figured it was time for this old professor to learn how young people clean up. Before I could speak, the train lurched. My body tilted forward as I tightly clutched the corn. The handsome guy turned his head sharply and glared at me, eyes filled with hostility beneath those sharp brows. What the heck? So aggressive. It's rush hour, it's bound to be crowded and bumpy. I didn't mean to bump into him. Honestly, he was annoying me more than I annoyed him. No point in asking about the cologne anymore. He looked way too grumpy to talk to. From then on, every time the train swayed, he would cover his butt and shoot me another deadly glare. After a few times, he finally lost it. Face flushed red, he turned and shouted, "Pervert." I wouldn't have believed he was yelling at me if his eyeballs weren't about to pop into my face. What did I do to deserve that? Just as I was about to defend myself, the train gave another violent jolt, and my lips crashed straight into his, right in front of the entire car. It was my first kiss. I was furious, but not as furious as him. He broke the kiss and slapped me hard across the face. Disgusting pervert, leaving behind to stun me and a car full of onlookers frozen mid-gasp. He pushed through the crowd and stormed into the next car. Pervert, me? If anything, the subway's the pervert. Rush hour is the real pervert. What's wrong with today's youth? Why are they all so hot-tempered? I was more wrong than an opera heroine. Never in my life had I been stared at so weirdly by so many people. By the time I got to school, my corn was cold. I figured I'd save it for dinner and skip breakfast altogether. I was already full of rage. Clutching my swollen cheek, I walked into the classroom. And there, in the back row, sat the furious face from this morning. The guy who slapped me was my student, the one I was subbing for. A colleague had asked me to cover his class while he recovered from hemorrhoid surgery. I thought the kid looked familiar. Can I just ask, is it illegal to hit a teacher? I glanced down at the roster. Chris Brown. Since I was the substitute now, I decided to teach him a thing or two. Getting bumped doesn't give you the right to slap someone. Young people really need to control their tempers. After class, I called out to him. He stopped, looking at me with a calm expression that still held a trace of resentment. I grabbed my bag and stepped off the podium. About this morning, let's talk. Before I could launch into a proper lecture, I missed a step and stumbled back and all straight into Chris's arms. This time, he didn't slap me, but his handsome brows twisted into a frown so tight they looked like braided rope. He helped me stand, and I heard him grit his teeth. There's nothing to talk about. He turned to leave. So disrespectful. Why are kids these days so hard to manage? I grabbed his arm. He flinched and sucked in a sharp breath. Professor, could you please be a little more appropriate? I didn't let go. There were a lot of people on the train. Bumping into someone is normal. Just a misunderstanding, really. No need to slap me, right? It's not like I wanted to kiss you. I was the real victim here. Chris's face was cold. I know. I won't tell anyone. Tell anyone what? That we kissed? Why does that sound a little shameful? All I could think about on the subway was how mortifying it was. Now, face to face with Chris, I felt downright embarrassed. I wasn't talking about that, I said quickly. I just meant young people shouldn't get so angry. You won't say anything either, will you, Professor Jones? You wouldn't want others to know, would you? I stared at him in a daze and nodded. He turned and walked off. Just as he reached the door of the lecture hall, he was blocked by his advisor, Teacher Danny. With her long hair and thick black-rimmed glasses, she poked her head in to talk to me first. Professor Jones, did you finish the documents the dean asked for last time? Not yet. Crap, I'd completely forgotten. They were due tomorrow morning. Teacher Danny waved me over. Let's go work on them together. I haven't finished mine either. Then she patted Chris on the shoulder. Chris, you don't have class this morning, right? Come help. So that's why she was standing in his way. Advisors roping students into helping some things never change. Teacher Danny had already sorted half of her materials. She told Chris to help me first. In front of her, Chris behaved naturally, calmly assisting me with the online forms as if nothing had happened. The whole process was smooth and surprisingly harmonious. No one would believe this obedient-looking student had just slapped me in public a few hours ago. Professor Jones, why is your face so red? Teacher Danny pushed her glasses up and looked at me suspiciously. Did you have an allergic reaction? Just hot. Really hot, I stammered, turning my head away nervously. Please tell me the students from this morning's class didn't see anything, thankfully. Teacher Danny didn't push it. She grabbed the tissues and left the office. Now it was just me and Chris. The air felt a little awkward. I got up to refill my teacup at the water dispenser near the desk. Papers and notebooks were scattered all over the floor. I carefully lifted my feet, trying to step through the gaps without stepping on anything. I successfully filled my cup with hot water and turned to head back, when Chris suddenly stood up and spoke. Professor, about this part of the form. He had been quiet for so long that his sudden voice made me jump. Startled, I stumbled and lurched forward. This time, my footing held. But the tea didn't. It splashed out. Tea spilled all over Chris's white dress shirt, staining it with wet tea leaves like some abstract art. Even though he slapped me that morning, at this moment, guilt flooded me. What was wrong with my sense of balance today? Still shaken from this morning, I rushed over to pat down his shirt, trying to clean it. But the more I patted, the more I felt something was off. The tea-soaked white shirt had turned semi-transparent, clinging tightly to his body, outlining the firm lines of his chest and abs. My hands, now working to brush off the tea leaves, naturally slid downward, tracing his pecs, then his toned stomach. When I looked up, Chris's ears were flushed bright red, his face burning with shame and fury. You did that on purpose, didn't you? No, absolutely not. Why would I throw tea on him on purpose? What would I gain from that? Even though he slapped me, I wouldn't retaliate like this. Chris was breathing heavily, his whole body taut with tension like a drum bow. Just then, Teacher Danny pushed the door open, and Chris barely managed to suppress his looming outburst. Chris, what happened? My shirt got dirty, Teacher Danny. I'll go change and come back. Feeling deeply guilty, I quickly cut in, interrupting their conversation. No need really. You can go. I'll handle the rest. Besides, it's almost lunchtime. As he walked past me, Chris's polite demeanor toward Teacher Danny vanished. He snorted dismissively at me through his nose. Great. I pissed the kid off again. But I really didn't do it on purpose. At lunch in the cafeteria, I happened to see Chris sitting alone at a 4-person table. Determined to clear the air and resolve the misunderstanding, I decided to take the initiative. After all, I was teaching his class for a whole semester. If he disliked me, it might affect his studies and that wouldn't be good. Just as I sat down with my tray across from him, he froze with his chopsticks midair, eyes wary. What do you want now? Relax. I just want to get along. Determined to open up, I thought I'd start with the generational gap between us. He wasn't that young anymore. We could talk as equals, maybe even as friends. I extended my hand across the table. Let me reintroduce myself. Jason Jones, age 30. I thought maybe we could. Chris shot me a glare and ignored my outstretched hand. He lowered his head and resumed eating. Don't even think about it. You're too old. Too old. First blood. A bolt of lightning from a clear sky. What's wrong with being old? Old people can still catch up with all the hot memes and trends of the youth. Chris lifted his eyes to glance at me coldly. Too old. And physically weak. Physically weak. Double kill. Another lightning strike from a clear sky. Was he the ancient Greek god of sharp tongues? How was I supposed to keep talking after that? I sighed and ate in silence alongside him. Forget it. I'd eat first and argue later. While chewing, I tried to think of a rebuttal. Hanging out with young people doesn't require scaling a mountain. What does physical strength have to do with it? Just as I finally thought of a good comeback and opened my mouth to speak, Chris stood up with his tray. I reached out to stop him, but as I turned, a photo slipped out of my pocket. Chris's ID photo. Earlier, when I spilled the tea, it had splashed onto the student files next to him. Teacher Danny had placed Chris's info on top, planning to recommend him for extra credit, so naturally, the tea hit his photo first. Before lunch, I found his photo's digital version and reprinted it. Then I stuck it in my pocket and came to eat. Now it had slipped out, and I quickly bent down to pick it up. Oh no, it couldn't get dirty again. I spent several bucks on that print. I treated it like treasure, brushing the dust off with my hands and even giving it a few gentle puffs of breath. Chris's face turned green. He stared at me, pupils trembling, eyes fixed on me, cradling his photo like a rare gem. I tried to explain. Oh, I just reprinted it. It's been in my pocket. Chris's breathing grew heavier. He looked genuinely mad. I noticed the red creeping up from his ears again, his whole face radiating shame. He yanked his sleeve from my grasp. Professor Jones, please have some decency. Wait, was it because I just touched his arm? Later, at dinner, I finally remembered that I'd left my corn cob back in the classroom. By the time I went to retrieve it, it was gone. That night, I dreamed of Chris. In the dream, I was chasing him, calling out, hey, wait, I can climb mountains. I've got stamina. What a ridiculous dream. The next day, during class, Chris walked past the podium without even glancing at me. After sitting down, he kept his head lower the entire time, avoiding eye contact completely. When I called his name, he just raised his right hand slightly and muttered a soft "here." Suddenly, a girl I didn't recognize, probably not even from our department, burst into the room, flung open the door, and shouted from the back of the classroom, "Chris, be my boyfriend." God damn it. Do I not exist as a professor anymore? Class is in session. I immediately threw her out under the grounds of disrupting the academic order. Chris looked up at me. I smiled and gave him a small nod as if to say, "You're welcome." Crisis handled. He rewarded me with a dramatic eye roll. Ungrateful little brat. Fine. I wouldn't stoop to a child's level. I resumed the lesson, and somewhere along the way, I got carried away. I started chatting with the students, straying off topic. Privately, I've always had a love for poetry, especially the bold and unrestrained kind. So I took the chance to share some of my favorites. There will be many people you admire in life. If I had to name someone I like, I'd say I like Brown. Chris suddenly slammed his desk and stood up, face strained with suppressed emotion. Professor Jones, I reject your confession. What the hell is he talking about? When did I ever confess? The bell rang. I reached for his arm, hoping to clear things up. The moment I grabbed him, the classroom erupted in exaggerated oohs. Startled, I let go. Chris took the opportunity to flee. Fine, I'd explain next time. I didn't have any more classes with Chris over the next few days, and I kept missing him on campus. Every time I passed by student hotspots, basketball courts, libraries, I'd look around furtively like a stalker. It got so bad I couldn't sleep properly. My mind was preoccupied with finding a casual way to run into him. To make matters worse, I started receiving a flood of WeChat messages from several of my female students. Professor Jones, I support you. Go get your man. Professor Jones, can I write fanfic about you too? Can I post it? Stoic older professor times cold puppy student, top bottom dynamic. You've got this, professor. Chris just seems indifferent. You can totally win him over. I frantically denied it. I'm not pursuing anyone. One of them replied with a smirking emoji. Sure, we get it. Let's just pretend you're not. Then my colleague whose class I was covering told me his short leave had become extended, and he'd need me to substitute even longer. After that, during the following classes, I didn't dare call Chris over after dismissal. I didn't want to give the students anything new to gossip about. But finally, one day, I spotted him in the library. The moment I grabbed his arm, curious stares exploded around us. Worried someone from class might see us, I yanked him into a nearby storage room and shut the door behind us. What now? Chris's eyes were wide with panic, as if I were about to devour him whole. I'm not pursuing you. That's what you pulled me in here for. Also, I remembered how he slapped me that first day just for accidentally bumping him. So I launched into a long-winded lecture about how young people need to stay calm, be rational, and not overreact. Chris looked like he was actually starting to believe me. When I finally finished, I gestured toward the door. All right, you can go. Chris frowned slightly and reached for the door, but it wouldn't open. What the hell? Why is he looking at me like that? How should I know? It was my first time in that storage room too. Panicking, Chris started pounding on the door, yelling toward the hallway. Is anyone there? Hello. For someone who seemed so aloof, he sure panicked quickly. I glanced at my watch and patted his back. Stop knocking. There's no one. The library's closed at this hour. We're stuck in here for the night. Chris spun around, horrified. Why are you so calm? You knew the door was broken, didn't you? You planned this, didn't you? I didn't, I said, completely honest. I just wanted to demonstrate, in a calm and composed manner, how to handle a crisis. Now Chris was plastered against the door like a starfish, his arms and legs pressed flat to the surface, breathing fast and heavy. I can't believe I actually trusted a pervert like you. Excuse me, why was he cursing me again? That mouth was too handsome to be saying such rude things. Wait, What was that white dot on his lip? Curious, I leaned in closer. And closer. Chris flattened himself even more against the door. His fist clenched, lashes trembling beneath his tall nose as his lips tightened. Then that mysterious white dot vanished into his mouth. Makes sense, I muttered and quickly pulled away, heading to the back of the room to inspect the couch. The storage room only had one desk and one couch long enough to lie on. We'd have to make do for the night. Chris stayed silent for a few seconds, then asked from behind me, "What do you mean by that?" "What do I mean by what? There's no signal here." "What? You want to stand until dawn?" The desk was short. Chris was not. So I gave him the couch. He lay down, but didn't close his eyes. Instead, he stared at me without blinking, like I was some wild animal about 2 pounds. God help me. I lay down on the hard desk and went straight to sleep. The next morning, sunlight streaming in woke me up. To my surprise, I was lying on the soft couch. Chris's tall frame was curled up on the too short desk, trying to make himself small. In the golden morning light, his eyelashes looked especially long and delicate. Then he opened his eyes and scared the hell out of me. "You were trying to kiss me." "What?" "I wasn't. I had hoped that spending the night together in that tiny storage room might ease the tension between us. But in the following classes, Chris continued to ignore my attempts at conversation like I didn't exist. So much for all that lecturing. Eventually, I gave up trying to talk to him. The next time we spoke was during a school camping trip. Teacher Danny asked if I was free to help out, and I said yes. While I was setting up the barbecue grill, Chris came over to talk to me first. "What are you doing here?" Teacher Danny asked me to help. Why didn't she ask Teacher Susan? Susan was another faculty member who was closer to Teacher Danny. How would I know? Maybe she was busy. "You better not have volunteered to come just to see me." "Excuse me, what kind of attitude is that? It's not like I'm getting paid extra for this." That night, when the room assignments were posted, Chris and I ended up in the same room. Teacher Danny explained it was for logistical reasons. It made sense for the class monitor and the supervising teacher to room together. Chris was the only male class monitor. We each took a single bed, and just when I was about to doze off, he continued his interrogation. "What did you offer Teacher Danny?" "What offer? Why is she helping you chase me?" I sat up and smacked my blanket. "She's not helping me." "So, you are chasing me?" "I'm not." "Then how do you explain locking me in that storage room overnight? If that's not a trap, what is? How was that my fault? The lock was broken. I didn't know it wouldn't open when I pulled it shut." Chris looked half convinced. "But the first day on the subway, you clearly..." At that moment, both of our phones buzzed at once. A file had been sent in the group chat for the trip. I opened it. The title screamed from the screen, "Mature Professor ex-puppy student, bondage play-o." My name and Chris's were everywhere in the story. Before I could close the file, it showed as retracted. "Oops, wrong group. Sorry, everyone." But it was too late. The group chat had already exploded. The girl who posted it tried to explain, terribly. I asked Professor Jones, and he didn't say no. Chris left the group chat. Then, fuming, he yanked the blanket up to cover his muscular arm rolled tightly into a burrito, and turned his back to me, only the dark back of his head visible. I was speechless. The girl had sent me several messages beforehand. I hadn't replied to all of them. How was I supposed to know she was writing something this spicy? I muttered softly to myself. I didn't approve it either. The next day, we headed into the desert. When we rode camels, I was seated on the one ahead of Chris's. The ride was rough, full of ups and downs, and I was nervous. I clamped my thighs tight around the saddle and held onto the handles for dear life. Still, the bumps jolted me constantly. At one point, my butt even left the saddle for a second. After the camel guide led us through the trail, I finally dismounted. My feet felt light as air. I turned around and saw Chris's ears glowing red and his face flushed as if it had been set on fire. Sure, the sun was strong, but wasn't this a little too dramatic? Heat stroke, I asked. He pressed his lips together and glared at me, clearly annoyed. You couldn't even sit properly on a camel. Seriously. Now even my camel posture was bothering him? He just couldn't stand me, could he? Fine. I got the message. I ignored him and walked past. Dinner was set at a long table made from a few pushed together. I deliberately chose the seat farthest from Chris. Yet he kept glancing in my direction. Staring again? I didn't even provoke him this time. A few girls flocked to the empty seats beside him. Chris, try the skewer. Want something to drink? Let's play a game. Yeah, let's play Jing 13 Hairpins. I'll go grab the cards. I sat chatting quietly in the corner with Teacher Danny, who gone to bed early the night before and hadn't seen the chaos in the group chat. Things started heating up on Chris's end of the table. The students were laughing and buzzing with excitement. Everyone seemed hyped except Chris. Although he participated, he seemed distant, like he was going through the motions. And he still kept glancing at me. Fed up, I turned my back to him. But to my surprise, he suddenly walked over and said to Teacher Danny, "Teacher Danny, I'd like to speak with Professor Jones. Would you mind switching seats?" Was he seriously kicking Teacher Danny out? He must have had a few drinks. Thankfully, she didn't seem to mind. "Sure, you to talk. I'll check on the girls." Now all the students were gathered at the far end of the table. Our side fell into a strange silence. Chris sat down across from me and said absolutely nothing. After a while, I couldn't take the awkwardness anymore. "Didn't you say you wanted to talk?" "No," he replied flatly. "It was too noisy over there. This side's quieter." After a few minutes, I was tired and about to leave when he suddenly handed me a skewer of meat across the table. "Stay a bit. Eat with me." I wasn't sure I heard him right, but he clarified, "Too many people gave me food. I can't finish it all. Can't let it go to waste." Right. We shouldn't waste food. So I sat back down and helped him eat. That night, we went to shower before bed. The bathhouse had semi-private stalls, and at that hour, it was just me and Chris. I was a little surprised to bump into him. "Still bathing this late?" I asked. He took off his jacket as he replied, "I wait until everyone else is asleep." What a coincidence. Me too. Tonight, because we were camping in the desert, the room assignments had changed. I had a single room and didn't know when he'd come to bathe. Awkwardly, the stall with dividers had a broken shower head, leaving only to open-facing shower spots. And by open, I mean completely visible. Without speaking, we both instinctively turned our backs to each other and showered in silence. Halfway through, my bar of soap slipped and flew backward. A naturally reserved man like me didn't dare turn around, so I spoke up. I dropped my soap. "Could you help pick it up?" No response. "It's near your side, I think. If you just bend down a little." "No," came his firm reply. "All right then, I'll grab it myself once I'm dressed." After my shower, I crab-walked awkwardly over to the side to get dressed. Chris was already getting changed too. The soap had somehow landed right at his feet. Even though he had only put on the bottom half of his clothes, I still approached to retrieve it. But just as I straightened up, my underwear got snagged on one of the metal rings attached to his ridiculously trendy pants. It didn't come off with one tug, or two. So now, our bodies were pressed together. His chest was really warm. "What are you doing?" "Excuse me." His weird pants hooked onto my underwear, not the other way around. I frantically tried to untangle myself, my hands moving so fast they blurred. But I didn't dare pull too hard. I was worried I'd rip the fabric. My frantic hand and leg movements brought our bodies even closer, causing me to rub against his chest again and again. Suddenly, Chris spun me around and pinned me against the wall. "Professor Jones," he growled, "I admit you're not bad looking. I'll even admit your posture on the camel was kind of sexy. But I'm warning you, stop seducing me. You're really good at this hot and cold act, huh? You've reeled me in like a hooked fish." Maybe it was the dry desert air. Or maybe it was that night in the shower where I spent too long in just my underwear. Either way, after the trip ended, I came down with a high fever. Teacher Danny helped me request leave from the dean and told me to rest for a few days. To my surprise, while I was in the hospital, I received a message from Chris. "What's going on? You're avoiding me." I had just been hooked up 2 and 4. "I'm not avoiding you, so I can let you pursue me now." A moment later, "Then, where the hell did you go? You've missed class for days." "I'm sick. I'm at the hospital." He didn't reply. About an hour later, Chris knocked on my hospital room door. My face was burning, nose stuffed with tissue, and I was wrapped in a blanket. When I opened the door and saw it was him, we both froze. "You came as the class monitor?" Representing the students, he ignored the question. "Professor Jones, do you look like this for everyone who comes to see you?" "What?" I turned and caught my reflection in the mirror. My cheeks were flush red from the heat, eyes watery, lips stained with milk I had just drunk. The blanket had slipped, revealing my pale, delicate collarbone, and I was holding up the fur bag with one hand. I muttered, "So this is what a sick person looks like, tragic. Come in, sit down." Chris took the fur bag from me and held it up himself. Then he placed a bag of fruit on the table. "But this with class funds? You shouldn't waste it on me." "I paid for it." "Well, generous of you. Back when I was a student, no class monitor ever spent money on me." Chris seemed to be in a good mood that day. We even chatted a bit. After the sun went down, I suggested he head back to campus. But he told me Teacher Danny had asked him to stay overnight and look after me. That was surprisingly thoughtful of her. I told Chris to sleep on the other bed, but instead he sat by mine, saying he wasn't sleepy yet. Then somehow we kept talking and talking. He was actually enjoying the conversation. Maybe he wasn't that bad after all, see? We could have a normal conversation. Eventually, I got too tired to stay awake. My head was spinning, so I laid down first. Maybe it was because we'd finally cleared up some misunderstandings. But I slept really well that night. In my dream, I was eating a big, juicy drumstick. I took a big bite, so delicious. Though, I think I heard someone scream, never mind. I ignored it and took another bite. Still delicious. The next morning, when I woke up, Chris had already gone back to campus. His visit definitely improved things between us. After I returned to school, our interactions as teacher and class monitor became more frequent. Maybe he was trying to earn more credits, but Chris started showing up at the office more often. Since I shared an office with teacher Danny, every time Chris helped her with something, he'd end up helping me too. Soon, exams were over, and we were given a 3-day break. On the last day before the holiday, Chris finished his tasks, but instead of leaving, he lingered around the office, pacing and stalling. Eventually, he gave me a long stare, then turned to teacher Danny. Teacher Danny, I think teacher Susan is looking for you. She is. Didn't we just part ways? Yeah, she told me she needed to speak with you. Teacher Danny looked a little suspicious, but still left. Now it was just me and Chris in the office. Since our relationship had mellowed out by now, I smiled and asked him, so? Any plans for the break? Chris looked at me, then swallowed hard, choked on something. Suddenly, he placed both palms on my desk and leaned in. Professor Jones, do you like movies? They're fine. Depends on the genre. I like sci-fi and thrillers. Romance and melodrama not so much. Comedies, meh. Sometimes I think I talk too much. No wonder he found me annoying at first. I have a spare ticket. My friend accidentally bought an extra. Would be a waste not to use it. I was about to decline, but I really hate wasting things. Just like with the skewers, I'd eaten them out of thriftiness. So I hesitated. What genre is it? Horror. I never watched a horror movie in my life, but I still took the ticket he offered. After handing it to me, Chris's normally calm face brightened a little. My friend will be sitting next to you when the time comes. He turned to leave, but as he passed by my desk, he accidentally knocked my wallet to the floor. It flipped open, and a photo fell out, an old picture of a young woman holding a chubby baby. Chris saw it and exploded. You have a wife and child. He turned back and grabbed my wrist. You have a whole family, and you still acted that way on the subway. What way? He looked like he was about to eat me alive. I had no idea what he was talking about. Just then, teacher Danny returned and opened the door. Chris quickly let go of my hand, face burning red, practically steaming. Without a word, he snatched back the movie ticket he had just given me and stormed out of the office. Not long after he left, teacher Susan came in looking confused. I heard you were looking for me. I thought you were looking for me. I even went up to the second floor to find you. Susan waved a hand. Nope. Anyway, I'm here for Professor Jones. I tilted my head, and she said she wanted to set me up on a blind date. Professor Jones, you're handsome and educated. It's time to get out there. The woman's highly accomplished too. You should at least give it a try. She's just not free this weekend, so you'll have to meet after the holiday. I meant to turn her down, but Susan said she'd already boasted to the woman. So, I ended up agreeing reluctantly. The 3-day break was uneventful. I scrolled through videos and happened to stumble upon the trailer for the movie Chris had given me a ticket for. I paused, watched it for a few seconds. Should I explain the photo to him? But why would I explain myself? Even if I wanted to. How would I say it? Hey, that's not my wife and kid. That's my mom when she was young, holding me as a baby. Sure, I'm skinny now, but I really was chubby as a child. Still, the idea of sending that kind of message out of nowhere felt incredibly awkward. So I gave up trying to clarify anything. 3 days later, classes resumed. Chris acted like I was invisible. He hardly came to the office anymore, only if teacher Danny specifically called for him. Even when he saw me, he didn't speak. During class, he listened but wouldn't look at me. Once, I was typing on my laptop in the office while Chris sat next to teacher Danny, helping her with some files. He didn't glance at me once. Out of boredom, teacher Danny suddenly remembered something. Professor Jones, isn't your blind date with that woman today? Chris, who'd been showing me his side profile for days, suddenly snapped his head around to face me. You're not married yet, Professor. He stared at me. But before I could answer, teacher Danny jumped in. Professor Jones has been single for years. I saw something flicker in Chris's eyes, couldn't tell if it was relief or frustration. After work, I went to the restaurant for the blind date. At the school gate, Chris stopped me. The photo, who was it? My mom and me. You were that fat as a kid. Want me to share my weight loss secrets? No thanks. I tried to leave, but he stopped me again. You're going on a date? Dressed like that? He didn't finish the sentence. Yes, Chris looked flustered. His brows drew together. You're in a hurry to get married. I'm not. I wasn't even going to go. But it's too late now. I'm going to be late. I pushed past him and left the campus. The woman I was meeting had fine wire-rimmed glasses, neat cropped hair, and a tailored blazer. I sat by the window and right away made it clear that I hadn't intended for this to be a real blind date. Teacher Susan said it was fine to just meet new people and maybe make a friend. My date smiled and responded warmly. That's perfectly okay. We all know each other. It's nice to make friends. With that out of the way, I relaxed. We started chatting and hit it off quickly. That's when my phone started buzzing nonstop in my pocket. I glanced at the screen. Chris, weren't you going to turn her down? You seem to be enjoying yourself. Do you flirt with everyone? Still fishing, huh? Wasn't reeling me in enough. I let you reel me in. Could you at least stop smiling like that? I turned my head slightly and spotted Chris outside the window, standing in the distance, glaring at me with utter resentment. Panicked, I lifted my elbow to cover half of my face. My date thought I wasn't feeling well. She leaned forward, concerned. Are you okay? I shook my head, but as an enthusiastic extrovert, she instinctively reached out toward me. That small, well-intentioned gesture reaching for my head was enough to trigger Chris. He barged into the restaurant without hesitation and yanked me away. He grabbed my arm and pulled me out of my seat, ignoring the look of confusion on my date's face. I'm so sorry, my professor has an urgent matter to attend to. What kind of urgent matter? She asked. On the street, I asked him the same question as he dragged me away. What's so urgent? Not here, he said. Let's talk at my place. He had rented a place off campus. The moment I stepped through the door, he pushed me up against the wall. Professor Jones, he said, eyes burning, you touched me all over on the subway. Doesn't that mean you're into me? Then what the hell are you doing going on a blind date? When did I ever touch you? He gestured animatedly. Do you really want me to spell it out? I don't think you can handle it. You poked me. No way. The subway was so crowded I didn't feel anything. Then I suddenly remembered the corn I had been gripping tightly that morning. Oh God, everything clicked. And I felt overwhelmingly grateful that I never ate that corn afterward. No wonder he called me a pervert and slapped me. I was flooded with guilt. Embarrassed, I started to explain, then hesitantly asked, sorry about that. Your butt, is it okay? I mean, that corn was pretty firm. Chris grabbed me by the collar and tossed me onto the bed. Even if that was a misunderstanding, the fact that you've been seducing me since. That's very real, Professor Jones. Now's not the time to worry about me. I think you should worry about your own, but instead. That night, he didn't let me go. It was a long and exhausting night. Honestly, what's the difference between a young college student and a diamond? The next morning, Chris had early classes and left first, leaving my battered body face down on his bed, unable to straighten my back. He wasn't wrong. I admitted I'm not in great shape. I simply can't withstand that kind of intensity. I dragged myself upright, clutching my lower back. Just as my blind date from the night before called, she said I had left my wallet at the restaurant and asked if everything was okay. I'd left in such a hurry. Was everything okay? No, it was not. But how could I possibly tell her that? I endured the pain, went to retrieve my wallet and to thank her, treated her to lunch. Unfortunately, just as we stepped out of the restaurant, we ran into Chris on his way home from class. Again, he seized me without a word and dragged me back to his apartment. I left for one morning, and this is what you do. So disobedient. Is that how all older men are? One's not enough, you've got to flirt with another. You. He trailed off, unable to finish the sentence. Instead, he grabbed my neck and pushed me down onto the couch. You're the one who came after me first. He kissed me fiercely, angrily, but I found myself enjoying it more than I'd like to admit. Well, the kid is handsome. I suppose I wasn't exactly losing in the situation. The only downside was when I stayed silent, he picked me up and dragged me to the mirror. Look at yourself. See how flushed you are. You're irresistible. I buried my head in shame. Chris leaned close to my ear and whispered with authority. You're not allowed to see that blind date again, Professor. I tried to explain. We're just friends. Chris chuckled next to my ear. Oh, right? You're absolutely right, Professor. A woman and a bottom. At best, just sisters. I'm pretty sure I was still straight before I got on that subway, forget it. Never taking the subway again. Later, I found out from teacher Danny that she had never asked Chris to stay the night at the hospital with me. In fact, she hadn't even told the class that I was sick. So, he'd gone entirely on his own, worried about me without saying so. Fine. So, what if I'm the bottom? He's this handsome. I'm not losing a thing.